Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2021 SLL Young Lighter Final. My name is Andrew Bissell, SLL President Elect, and I'm delighted to be here hosting today's final. The Young Lighter competition provides a unique platform for those in early years of their lighting careers. Their presentations allow the young lighters to illustrate their knowledge and research on a lighting subject, hone their presentation skills, and raise their profile within the industry. I'm pleased to say that the competition is going from strength to strength, and we are now in its 27th year. The process for the competition starts with a PowerPoint presentation of their topic or paper, and then if selected for the second round, they produce a short video blog enabling them to demonstrate their ideas and concepts further. The judging process then determines the finalists, who then get 15 minutes to present their papers, and that's what we're here to see this evening. The winner of the Young Lighter 2021 will be announced once all finalists have presented and the judges have completed their review. For their efforts, each finalist receives a cash prize of £250 and a year's membership to the SLL. The overall winner gets an additional £1,000 cash prize and will be named SLL Young Lighter 2021. Once again, the standard of applications was very high, making it extremely difficult for the judges. And I'm pleased to say that we have 4 excellent finalists for you to listen to. The first is Maria Englezou with the topic, Do we need to change the design of healthcare facilities rooms? Then we have María Teresa Aguilar Carrasco with the title, Lighting Optimization in 24-Hour Work Centers to Promote a Good Circadian Rhythm. We then have Remedios María López Lovillo with the title of Adaptive Lighting Control System User Orientated. And finally, Verity Rose with the title of their talk, Drone Lighting, the Impact and the Future. So without further ado, our first paper this afternoon is from Maria Englezou, Do we need to change the design of healthcare facilities rooms? Maria is a PhD candidate in the Department of Architecture at the University of Cyprus. She holds a diploma in architectural engineering from the University of Thessaly in Greece and a Master of Science in Sustainable Architecture Studies from the University of Sheffield in the United Kingdom. During her undergraduate and postgraduate studies, she was awarded numerous academic performance scholarships. She is currently a research fellow in the Energy and Environmental Design of Buildings Research Laboratory at the Department of Architecture, UCY. Her research interests focus on environmental design for buildings, visual comfort, non-visual effects of lighting, and the architectural design for human health and well-being. Currently, her PhD research focuses on daylight performance in healthcare facilities and the non-visual effects on patients. Over to you, Maria.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Andrew, for the introduction. So my name is Maria Englezou, and I'm a PhD candidate at the Department of Architecture at the University of Cyprus. My research focuses on daylight performance in healthcare facilities and how this could affect the physiology and psychology of patients. During the 19th century, hospitals were designed based on the typical Nightingale ward, and this type of ward plan was usually characterized by a large linear open space with windows on either side, and usually contained between 24 and 30 beds. The key determining factors for this model were good lighting levels, fresh air, and good ventilation using operable windows, and improved supervision of the patients. Florence Nightingale was the first person to observe that direct sunlight, and not only daylight, is necessary for the speedy recovery of the patients. While the Nightingale ward was widely used at the beginning of the 19th century, in the later years there was an increased need to change the placement of the patient beds and size of wards to increase privacy increase the patient well-being, and reduce the length of patient stay at the hospital. Therefore, the RIGS ward was used, which included rooms with 4 beds, 2 beds, or even 1 bed in case of more privacy. During the last 2 decades, there was an increased interest in the field of lighting, and specifically how daylight can affect the human physiology and psychology. 3 main pillars are identified. The first one includes the physiological aspect of light, which are basically made by photobiologists, chronobiologists, and neuroscientists. The second one study the psychological aspect of lighting based on behavioral, cognitive, and environmental psychology. And the third pillar focuses on the spatial configuration, including architecture and lighting design. The existing research investigated the human circadian rhythm and how light relates to changes in hormones, the sleep-wake cycle, the metabolic functions, and more. Other research fields study the cognitive performance of people in educational or office buildings, and basically the effects on productivity, alertness, and attention. The main scope of the current research is building design and looking at the changes of daylight performance based on the location, orientation, room geometry, aperture sizes, glazing properties, or surface reflectances. To this day, visual comfort included the investigation of illuminance, luminance, or glare. The last few years, with the publication of the new CIE S26 standard, it is possible to study the non-visual effects of lighting based on light intensity, spectrum, timing, duration, and the photic history. The first part of the research was to study the natural lighting behavior with real measurements in a test room using a spectrometer. Measurements were taken during the 4 seasons at 4 different times during each day in 20 positions inside the test room, and for each position at 8 vertical view directions. The graph shows the linear correlation of the melanopic DER and the CCT. When the view direction is south, the melanopic DER ranges from 0.6 up to 1.20. However, when the view direction is north, meaning opposite the far away from the window, the melanopic DER ranges from 0.6 up to 1. More variations can be seen depending on the timing or the view direction. And at this point, it should be mentioned that the melanopic DER can be used as an indicator of whether a light source can be considered as a blue enriched light or not. And the second graph shows the melanopic DER and the melanopic EDI. Here we can see that when the view direction is towards the window, the results are spread out. And in this case, it's the south, southwest, and southeast view directions. An important observation was on winter measurements, which can be seen in the light blue color. And during this time, the direct exposure to sunlight resulted in high intensities for the melanopic EDI, while at the same time, the melanopic DER was at the lowest points. The second part of the research is focused on computer simulations to investigate various parameters. When designing healthcare facilities, emphasis should be given on the overall comfort of patients, since their accommodation in hospitals can be psychologically and physiologically stressful and painful. Computer simulations are divided in 2 sections. The first section is on visual comfort, by achieving sufficient lighting levels and at the same time reducing glare probability. The second section is on health and well-being by looking at light intensity, the spectrum, and timing. The investigation is mainly on the double room, which is the most widely used healthcare room. Other parameters under study are the window sizes, and here we can see 6 different window mainly 3 different window sizes, and the window placement, which we can see that the W2, W3, and 4 or 5 have the same window to wall ratio, but with different placement on the external facade. And moreover, we investigate the glazing types with different visible transmittances ranging from 0.21 up to 0.75. This graph shows the category for the useful daylight illuminance for acceptable levels, meaning that from 300 up to 3000 lux, and for all the parameters under study. For this UDI category, the north, northeast, and northwest orientations have better results than the rest orientations. The south, southwest, and southeast orientations show more variation between the 4 categories of UDI, since direct exposure to sunlight would result in higher light intensities. The second graph shows the annual sunlight exposure, for which again we can see that the north, northeast, and northwest orientations have less than 10% of the room's area exposed to direct sunlight, and the rest orientations seem to have higher glare probability. Hence, shading devices should be implemented. The next part focuses on studying human-centric metrics as proposed by the CIES 26 standard. More parameters that were considered essential for patient rooms are the patient position, the patient view direction, as shown in the graphs here in the figures, and the positioning of the bed inside a double room. At this point, it should be mentioned that settings used for the computer simulations were based on the location of Cyprus, using 8 different orientations, the 6 window sizes that were previously seen. At this point, only 2 types, glazing types were used with visible transmittances at 0.88 and 0.45. The type of sky was set to clear, which is a common case for the climatic conditions of Cyprus. And for this presentation, only data for 9 in the morning are presented. This histogram shows the results for the melanopic DER based on 2 seasons and 8 room orientations. The red dashed line shows the equivalent melanopic DER for the CIE illuminant D65, which is with the correlated core temperature at 6500 kelvins. There is a noticeable difference when comparing the results for June and December, and more specifically for the south, southeast, and east orientations, possibly due to direct sunlight exposure for that time. In more detail, during the June, the south and southeast and east orientations have melanopic DER from 0.8 up to 1.1, while the same orientations during December have melanopic DER from 0.6 up to 0.8. This graph shows the results for melanopic EDI and melanopic DER, showing the difference for the 2 seasons, for winter and the summer. Results for June are presented using the blue light color, and while for December using the orange color. It is clear that during December, the melanopic DER has bigger fluctuations ranging from 0.6 up to 1.16, while in June is from 0.75 up to 1.1. When comparing the same results based on room orientations, we can see that the two main clusters are created based on whether at the specific moment there is a higher light intensity with direct sunlight exposure or not. And we can see here the orientations on the right side are the north, northwest, southwest, and west, while on the left side it's the east, southeast. The orientations of northeast and south are in both clusters, depending whether the results are for June or December. In conclusion, building parameters such as window size and glazing types have a significant impact on interior lighting levels. The orientation and timing based on season and time during a day are the most important parameters, since these are related to the sun position. And direct exposure to sunlight increases the melanopic EDI, which is mainly the intensity, but at the same time reduces the melanopic DER, as mentioned, that is an indicator for a blue enriched light source. So based on the findings, we can try different design options that would provide the optimum quality and quantity of natural lighting for the patients. Sorry. And moreover, further research is needed to correlate the melanopic DR and melanopic EDI with specific biological responses in humans. And finally, more attention should be given to the needs of patients when designing healthcare facilities. And I would like to finish my presentation with a phrase by Richard Hopte, that in the right hands, sunlight can be a medicine. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much indeed, Maria. That was fascinating and a great way to end as well. Superb. Thank you so much. So on to our second presentation of the evening. We have María Teresa Aguilar Carrasco with the title of Lighting Optimization in 24-Hour Work Centers to Promote a Good Circadian Rhythm. Teresa is an architect and researcher at the Department of Architectural Construction at the Higher Technical School of Architecture of Seville. She's a member of the research group TP130, and they are looking at architecture, heritage and sustainability, including acoustics, lighting, optics and energy. Teresa is a PhD student in architecture, developing research in the field of lighting and its relationship with the architectural design and human health. Over to you, Teresa.
Thank you. Hi. Cancer, depression, obesity, diabetes are only some of the diseases that shift workers may suffer. My name is Teresa, I'm an architect, and I'm trying to help solving this problem. But before getting into the subject, I would like to make a reflection about where we live. We live here on Earth, and the movement of the Earth around the sun causes days and nights, and humans have had to adapt to these cycles of light and darkness, and we get it thanks to the circadian rhythms. The circadian rhythms are endogenous cycles that repeat almost 24 hours, and they can influence important functions in our bodies, such as sleep-wake cycle, hormone secretion, eating habits, or body temperature. They are generated by internal clocks with a rhythmic pattern of approximately 24.3 hours. So there is a lag between this duration and the duration of the Earth's light and dark cycle of 24 hours. So due to this reason, they must be synchronized by external signals called cycles, and daylight is the main one. The synchronization occurs thanks to phototransduction, a process through which the secretion of melatonin occurs. And the melatonin is a hormone that controls the sleep cycle. And it has the lower levels during the day and the highest during the night. As it can be seen in the image, around 10 in the night, it starts to be secreting until 5 or 6 in the morning when the suppression starts. But light doesn't affect visual system and circadian system in the same way, due to the fact that the photoreceptors that act in each system are different, so the spectral sensitivities are also different. The circadian system is more sensitive to short wavelength, around 460 nanometers, and the visual system is more sensitive to medium wavelength. And due to this difference, the metrics that quantify the effect of the light on both circadian on both systems are also different. We are used to work with metrics related to the visual system, such as illuminance, daylight factor, daylight autonomy, but how can we work with the circadian light? Well, the Lighting Research Center has developed a mathematical model that makes it possible to quantify the influence of the light in the circadian system using the circadian stimulus metric. And this metric measures the melatonin suppression, and it goes from 0 to 70%. Short wavelength lights, that is cooler or blue lights, provoke a higher melatonin suppression. And that is why blue morning light makes melatonin levels be lower during the day, and it maintains us active during all the day. However, long wavelength lights, that is warmer or yellow-orange lights, cause a lower suppression. For that reason, orange sunset light makes melatonin levels get higher and higher as night approaches, and it prepares us to sleep. So natural light plays a critical role in the circadian rhythm synchronization, but the problem appears when people start spending most of our times indoors, where natural light is insufficient and we have to turn on the electric lighting. So this makes our health being at risk due to the circadian rhythm disruption. And several studies have demonstrated that this desynchronization is highly related to a large number of diseases such as sleep disorders, coronary heart disease, cancer, obesity, depression. And this became more and more important in continuous activity work centers where people are exposed to electric lighting not only during the day, but also during the night. And although the problem appears with the arrival of electric lighting, we need it. So we have to turn it also into the solution. And the solution is called biodynamic lighting. The spectrum and intensity of natural light vary throughout the day and the different seasons of the year. And this is the working principle of biodynamic lighting. Biodynamic lighting allows both the luminous flux and the spectrum to be varied with the idea of to be able to replicate the natural light at any time. And here it is where my research question arises. Is it possible to design a system to establish the optimal conditions of natural and electrical lighting in continuous activity workspaces in which it is intended to promote an adequate circadian rhythm? And this is translated into two main objectives. The first one that consists of quantify the influence of the different parameters of the architectural space on the circadian stimulus, that is room dimensions, windows, solar protection, furniture, reflectance. And the second one that is made of making a proposal of biodynamic lighting configuration to promote a good circadian rhythm based on the architectural parameters and outdoor conditions, such as sky condition, location, or date. And to achieve these objectives, a methodology has been developed, and this is where where the research is divided into two parts. An experimental part based on simulations, and a second part that focuses on contrast with reality. And both are carried out in the same study cases, two intensity care units of the University Hospital Virgen del Rocío here in Seville, in Spain. and with the result, a lighting model will be proposed. But why these case studies? Well, mainly because the personnel who work there perform tasks that require a high concentration and alertness 24 hours a day. And they usually have a 12-hour shift during the day or during the night. And the first step is the characterization of these spaces, since it is essential for the creation of the virtual models. The virtual models are built using Grasshopper. Grasshopper is a parametric tool of Rhino0 software that has the advantage that it allows modifying any parameter of the architectural space at any time, the room dimensions, the window size, position. And to be sure that this virtual model behaves like reality, it must be adjusted. So real illuminance values are measured and compared with the simulation results under the same conditions. And the model is adjusted until they coincide, the results coincide. But this parametric tool, Grasshopper, has another advantage that, and I think it's even more important, that is the possibility of using a wide variety of plugins about thermal or energy analysis, structural assessment, and what interested me, lighting simulations. In this line, there are several plugins such as Diva and Climate Studio by Solema or Honeybee by Ladybug Tools. And the main objective of using these tools is to calculate the luminance values, since from them and using the mathematical model described before, the circadian stimulus is calculated, as well as other metrics such as the melanopic photopic relation. And the aim of these simulations is checking several hypotheses to analyze the influence of all the parameters that affect the circadian rhythm, both statics and dynamics parameters. Statics such as window, surfaces, reflectance, perimeter, and dynamics such as solar protection, electric lighting configuration, sky condition, location. And in parallel to the experimentation through simulations, biodynamic lighting is installed in the traumatology and pediatric intensity care units, and the luminous flux and spectrum are adjusted according to the time of the day. To be able to contrast the simulation result with reality, several tests are carried out in which both quantitative and qualitative data are collected. Quantitative data consists of indoor conditions, measurements like luminance, air temperature, CO2 levels, but also biological markers of the personnel who work there, such as melatonin. And in this way, we have the aid of biomedical researchers. As to qualitative data, a survey about colorimetry, thermal comfort, visual comfort, and circadian stimulus has been designed since I want to know the user perception about the lighting. And with the results of simulations contrasted with reality, the final product is created. And it is intended to be a guideline to help architects, engineers, and designers to optimize natural and electric lighting to create healthy workspaces, and especially for users that, who have particular needs. And the guideline allows to configure natural and electric lighting according to the workspace's room characteristics to promote a good circadian rhythm. And this methodology has already been proved, and first results have been obtained and published. And this guideline is being created. It has been applied in a 24-hour hospital laboratory, with a room configuration that shows great similarities to typical open plan workspaces. So the guideline can be easily used in many work centers. And the established parameters were the following. About daylight conditions, first, the impact of daylight on circadian rhythms was assessed throughout all the year. And in the case of daytime, it must be highlighted that the objective of this first experiment was providing enough melatonin suppression at 11 a.m. since although melatonin suppression starts early in the morning, the lowest levels are achieved around this time. As to sky conditions, 3 different skies were selected: clear, overcast, and intermediate skies. And the last parameter that affects natural light, that is window size. So 3 different room models were defined to evaluate the effect of window to facade ratio, 20, 30, and 40%. As to electric lighting conditions, the correlated color temperature and the luminous flux are the parameters assessed. In this way, 2 scenarios were used, one with warm lamps and another with cool ones. The virtual model was built and illuminance and circadian stimulus metrics were calculated with every combination of the parameter described before, and the results serve to determine guidelines to quantify the minimum luminous flux required both to guarantee a minimum illuminance value for visual tasks and to provide a suitable circadian stimulus value for occupants. And with the results, this figure was created where the horizontal axis represents the months of the year, while the vertical one defines the minimum luminous flux required. It has been compared the 3 different window size and 2 positions in the room, near the windows and in the center of the room. And in every scenario, the 3 different sky conditions and both electric lighting CCT are represented. And finally, this figure has been designed to propose electric lighting configurations for each scenario. Each section shows 3 areas defined with different luminous regulations according to the electric luminous flux required to meet a sufficient circadian stimulus and illuminance values. And 10 steps are defined in order to represent the demanded luminous flux according to cool and warm lamps. And there are even areas where natural light is sufficient, and they are represented with the yellow or orange bands. And this figure is intended to be a guide for the electric lighting configuration of similar spaces from the window size, the depth to the window, the sky conditions, the season of the year, and the CCT of the electric lighting. And it allows not only to promote a good circadian stimulus, but also it contributes to energy savings. And finally, just say that it is a research in progress, and I hope that with all the final results, I would be able to contribute to the creation of healthier workspaces. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Teresa. That was fantastic. And on to a third talk. This is Remedios María López Lovillo with a talk on adaptive lighting control system, and in particular the user-orientated effects. Remedios is an architect, having studied at the University of Seville in Spain. She is currently a PhD student in architecture and a researcher at the Department of Architectural Construction at the University of Seville. She's also a member of the research group TEP 130, looking at architecture, heritage and sustainability of the Andalusian scientific research. She develops research on the field of lighting control systems and its relationship with the architectural design and human interactions of health. Over to you, Remedios.
Okay, thank you. Could you see the presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Remedios María López, and my research focuses on finding the guideline to achieve a lighting control system that adapts to the real preferences and needs of the users. Okay, the first question I asked myself when I started the research was, what is an adaptive lighting control system? Adaptive to what? It is the same adaptive as user-oriented. The first thing I understood is that a lighting control system has to deal with multiple situations that occur due to the development of different tasks, the occupation by different people, and even the changing exterior conditions. However, traditional lighting control systems have mainly concern with maximizing energy saving, achieving lighting values according to standards, and guarantee comfortable indoor thermal conditions. But analyze what are the real needs of the user has not been a very widespread objective. So for that purpose, it will be necessary to analyze what are the real user needs, what are the lighting preferences of this user, and even obtain a lighting environment that ensures their health. So these seem to be the keys towards an adaptive lighting control system user-oriented. So at this point, the following research question comes up. It is possible to get a lighting control system that consider the preferences of the users, adapt to their needs, and ensure their health? So to answer this question, the progress is divided into two sub-questions. The first one, how can we configure a user-oriented lighting control system? And the second one, how are the user preferences, needs, behaviors being incorporated in this control? So the aim of this work is to establish the guideline to achieve a lighting control system user-oriented. So the first approach to achieve this objective is analyze what are the conditioning elements of this system. The first is important to consider what are the lights inside the space we analyze. We must be aware of the importance of prioritizing the use of daylighting due to it is beneficial for the user and for the health and the performance of the users. However, we cannot always depend on daylighting. So the most common system combine the use of both daylighting and electrical one. So considering the two lighting sources mentioned above, the next step is to determine the type of strategy. Traditionally, two main types of strategy has been established: feed-forward or open loop, and feedback or closed loop. In the former, only daylighting is considered, while the later, the feedback component allow analyzing the level of both electrical and natural lighting and regulate the system according to the established values. So in this system, multiple elements participate. So for example, sensors are very important elements because they give us information about the lighting level in several points of this space. But even these give information about the presence, or even they can identify the occupants. Actuators are related to the output element of the system, and these not only turn the luminaires on/off, but also allow regulating the brightness or the intensity, and even the color temperature. Controllers are an essential element too, because they define the control mode. For example, it could be on/off, proportional to the measured level, proportional to the measured error. And another important consideration is to know what are the parameters that define the space, the surrounding, and even the user. For example, we have the building condition parameter, such as the location, the orientation, or another interior, like the reflectance of the surface. Others are directly related to the morphology of the space, such as the window shape and size, and even the dimension of the space. There are dynamic factors too, such as the period of the year, the sky condition, or the meteorological condition. And in relation to the user, we must consider their lighting preferences, their timetable in this space, and even the type of task they perform. So we already have the key elements to configure a lighting control system. But how can include the user into this system? Well, first we must know what condition the user in relation to their preferences are needs. Visual preferences must be considered, but also thermal, because they could condition the former. Moreover, physiological aspects such as the regulation of the circadian rhythm and psychological aspects must be considered. And how to know how these factors affect the user and their behavior can include in the system, we can analyze their interaction with the system, for example, through observation. However, this is not always possible and or effective. So another method is through survey. In this type, we can use much more structured and direct questions to know more specific aspects. Otherwise, some research are found that people are more important thing to do than worrying about configure the system to their preferences. So it could be better to anticipate to the action of the occupant. And for this, we can use the data collecting from the previous analysis and analyze, in this case, their behavior. So for this, the use of stochastic model is appropriate because this model introduces random variables that resemble the real behavior of the user. Some of these logics that could be used for this aspect are linear regression model, logistic one, fuzzy logic, artificial neural network, or Bayesian model. So these previous steps allow us to achieve the behavior pattern that could be implemented in a lighting control algorithm. So now all these theoretical this previous theoretical framework has contributed to development a methodology that will be tested in one case study and validated with another. And the final methodology will serve as a guide for other designs. So the first step is to establish the parameters that define each space and affect the user in this space. Then the monitoring of environmental variables is proposed. On the one hand, field measurements are carried out, for example, related to the horizontal and vertical illuminance, temperature, and humidity. And on the other hand, the environmental perception of user is analyzed. To do this, we start from the analysis of their preferences. Due to this, it could be condition their interaction with the system. And to do this, we can use cognitive ergonomic techniques. The most technique used for this is the survey. It could include questions about visual and thermal comfort, general color perception, question about circadian rhythm, and another related to psychological issues. So the data of time from these surveys could be contrasted with the field measurement and of time, the result to implement it a modeling in which we could analyze both static and dynamic metrics. So with all these previous data, we can achieve a new dynamic metric user-oriented. With all these results, we can know what are the preferences and the behavior of the user. So we can implement a stochastic model to know the behavior pattern that will configure the final control logic. So we expect to obtain as a final product a control logic that could be applied to any case, allowing the optimization of each space, and that could be based on its specification, functional requirement, and even user consideration. So to test the methodology told before, 2 case studies are developed in 2 intensive care units. They are associated with 2 research projects in which I participate, and they focuses on the analysis of the influence of the lighting on professionals who work in this unit 12 uninterrupted hours even during night, which cause an incorrect regulation of the circadian rhythm. And these professionals are the ones who participate as volunteers in the study. So in the first project called Dinalai, a dynamic lighting control biodynamic lighting control system has been installed with biodynamic luminaires and controlled by a SPENA module. So in this unit, the system allowed regulating both flux and color temperature to favor the circadian reading of the occupant. So in this project, we have configured different scenes and we start the experimentation. On the one hand, we surveyed where the user asks questions related to color rendering, thermal and comfort condition, and another parameter. And this is complementing with biological samples that have been collected to control the melatonin secretion and thus now the regulation of the circadian rhythm. And also in these days, in this test day, environmental measures have been taken related to the illuminance, the horizontal illuminance, the vertical illuminance in 4 direction, and humidity and temperature measure. So with the information extracted from these surveys, a database has been elaborated to obtain the user preferences and compare it with the measurement taken on site. So all this experience has served to improve the system that will be implemented in a second case study. In this case, it's to an intensive care unit. It is associated to the project called Caroline Light. And the previous experience has served us to configure the control system from the second one, solving some problems that we noticed from the previous experience. So the result of time from this first experience will allow us to adjust the control of the second and at the same time validate the proposed methodology. So at this point of the work, the conclusion are the following. An adaptive lighting control system, user-oriented, must consider the user preferences and needs, but also ensure their health. It is important to know too what are the elements that better adjust to each concrete space. And predictive models are going to become an important tool because it is better to anticipate the behavior of the user. And the control logic must not only adapt it to each user, but also it could be adjustable to any configuration and context. And the final result of this work, we want to obtain a guideline to develop any adaptive lighting control system user-oriented. So this is all, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Remedios. That's fascinating. Thank you. Our final presentation this evening is Verity Rose with Drone Lighting, the Impact and the Future. Verity worked as an architectural lighting designer for around 3 years, but before that she studied lighting design for theatre and performance at university. During that time, Verity completed a module on architectural lighting and took part in the SLL Ready Steady Light competition. It was this which caught her interest so much that she couldn't resist exploring more. Verity believes it's important to imagine the design and future possibilities in the face of technological change and development. As with every year that passes, we are seeing something new and improved. Over to you, Verity.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Verity Rose, and I'm currently working as an architectural lighting designer within a consultancy that focuses a lot on making buildings as environmentally friendly as possible. My topic tonight will be on drone lighting and its impact on the future. I would first like to start with a quote from Pat Hume, the CEO of Canvas GFX. The drone market is forecast to be worth almost 45 billion globally within a few years. Considering this technology is only a few decades old, the growth has been exponential, and I'm excited to see where it goes. In this presentation, we'll be exploring the topics of where drones have come from and in which direction advancements in the technology are heading. I will be specifically looking at their uses in advertising and architectural design in the future, including potential environmental and economic issues associated with drones and how standards and regulations could help. I will begin with a brief history of notable events. The first use of drones with traditional advertising was with the Dronecast in 2014. A quadcopter was used with a hanging weighted banner beneath them with printed text or images, similar to aeroplanes that trail a banner behind. The benefit to this is if you're already used to piloting a quadcopter, then the addition of a banner means your control will not be too adversely affected by the weight. There have been reports of people using similar technology to fly leaflets up to office windows promoting lunchtime deals. Drobotron in 2017 used a quadcopter with a round screen in the middle for digital advertising. This worked as sort of a flying TV billboard. The screen could show various uploaded images, videos, and text. While it could not fly over crowds for health and safety reasons, its size of a 918mm diameter allows it to be near crowds, say at a beach or festivals where traditional billboards may be harder to place. The first drone display which catapulted drones into the headlines was with the Future Lab display in 2012. This was located in Austria and was used for entertainment using swarming technology to create fluid displays and coordinated to produce an image. They used an LED light source, but the early drones were more limited by rain and strong winds. Since then, drone displays have only grown larger, such as EHang in 2017. It was the first 1,000+ drone display at the Fortune Global Forum in China, as part of a welcome gala. The event was executed with just one console operator, meaning that the positioning error of the entire swarm was reported to be no more than 2 centimeters for each drone. This year included a record-breaking 3,000+ drone display in Shanghai by Genesis Motors for a luxury car launch. Due to the large number, each drone effectively becomes a pixel, allowing large detailed images and words to be spelled out, as well as more subtle animation movement effects. Another first during this year was Bilibili using hundreds of drones to form a readable QR code in Shanghai, which was also a light display created for the anniversary of a popular role-playing game. This display showed characters and logos before a QR code, which linked users to their homepage, allowing for a much more direct route of advertising. Drone displays have also become much more common for celebrating large events such as New Year's Eve countdowns, often replacing the more traditional fireworks. 2012 was the largest UK drone show despite using only 300 drones. My prediction is that this may mark the start of the UK following the rest of the globe in using drone displays during the year. The University of Zurich has also created a new algorithm for a fully autonomous drone, which has beaten 2 world-class pilots in a drone race. However, its current limitations are that it had to spend hours learning the course and optimizing the path using externally placed cameras. Potentially in the future, using onboard cameras and longer-lasting batteries, this could reduce the need for human pilots and human error. In Dubai, the United Emirates has successfully used drone technology to enhance rainfall by flowing the drones into clouds and releasing electrical charges to help form rain. These drones specifically are more durable in order to fly higher and resist strong winds but still carry a payload. Other efforts have included releasing salt into clouds. The Swell Pro quadcopter Spryer drone are able to fly and be controlled by a pilot or auto-fly pre-programmed path flights. However, it is also able to be submerged upside down so that the propellers pull it downwards through the water. Currently used with camera technology, but there is the potential for other waterproof technology in the near future. These last 2 examples show how the technology can evolve and be used in environments where we currently cannot combine drones and lighting. The potential for advertising evolution using drones can be seen by the Genesis Motors drone display. The technology is already able to produce an impressive display resolution. Perhaps instead of billboards, drone displays will be used as screens in the sky. Smaller fan LED projectors could be used to create 3D images, which can be sent with the drone to their target audience, thus allowing for personalized drone advertising. Preset paths around tourist hotspots, advertising local businesses, where the drones could carry banners or screens to perhaps project messages, directions, hot deals, or even just pointing to the direction of emergency exits. Site-specific drone adverts could replace signage, for instance, opening hours, property for sale signage, and spoken signs that could potentially also follow a course around the perimeter. After the inception of the internet, it was not long before advertising became a major part of it with the expanding technology. I believe advertising will continue to grow as an important part of the drone industry. Similar controls and regulations that the internet has in place today will be required of advertising drones to reduce spam and malicious use. The creativity and new ways to engage consumers will be worth keeping an eye on. Soon the drones themselves could become connected to the internet and use proximity trackers to be able to give personalized ads to individual people or groups. I could imagine large companies using maps, GPS tracking, etc. to make this possible. It has, as I'm sure everyone is aware, become more difficult to stay private in this day and age. The perspective for the application of drones for use in architecture include planning, such as using improved technology to survey sites and buildings. Drones are able to fly into parts of buildings or sites that might be hazardous to human health or difficult to reach, such as inaccessible ledges. It could also deploy smaller 3D projection drones during meetings to help reveal 3D visuals rather than having to rely on 2D screens, allowing for easier viewing of all elevations and details, such as when you're looking at a rhino model. When it comes to design, I think it's a very untapped area. Improvements in technology could provide an increased energy output and longer battery life. Combining new ways of 3D projection and mapping allows for a more organic design for interior or facade. Hives of small drones could be used within buildings following select path or zones, and then autonomously returning to a hive to recharge. Drones could also light building facades for events and seasonal changes, instead of intrusive building-mounted lighting. For example, snowfall during Christmas or flowers blooming over a facade to celebrate Earth Day. Free autonomous control rather than being manned, including preset flights and designs which could work in tandem as part of a smart connected building. It could be automatically deployed at certain times, such as when the interior lighting comes on. Instead of traditional stage or house lighting, drone technology could be built into the lighting design. Submersible drones with waterproof lighting could create patterns and art in water features and larger bodies of water. Charging points integrated within building features or public realms, such as a canopy, would reduce the need to build separate buildings for this purpose, therefore reducing the environmental impact. An example of this could be using solar panels on a rooftop to store the power, which is then used by wireless charging pads to recharge the drones. The roof spaces could also be used as rooftop green spaces to blend in better with the environment and improve air quality. As drone technology increases, I expect we'll see a further spread into new sectors. The main ones currently fueling this technology are events, advertising, personal and military use. The technology is improving year on year, just as we saw with the development of LED lighting. There will be creative and logistical ways of using drones that are unimaginable at this point in time, and so potential applications will grow with the technology in the future. The impact of drones in our built environment could lead to charging points and landing pads which will alter urban design as we know it. Looking to the environmental impact, there are some positives as we embrace renewable sources of energy generation. The impact of electricity on CO2 production and the environment will decrease as a consequence. The operational carbon for running drones has also decreased. Using drones for architectural lighting would decrease the need for permanent equipment mounted to buildings. This could be particularly exciting for listed and historic structures. Having architectural lighting drones programmed to run on specific time schedules could reduce light pollution and energy costs. And using drone displays instead of fireworks would create less air and noise pollution. Not to mention drones are reusable, so longer term would have a lower carbon footprint. Unfortunately, as with any technology, there are some negative environmental factors to consider as well. There is potential for property damage from rogue drones and resources required for repairs. There have already been cases of drones crashing in protected wildlife areas and causing issues such as scaring away birds from their nests, and the lithium batteries contain metals that can pollute and would need recycling correctly. Given the electronics and batteries contained within a drone, they have the potential for a high embodied carbon. This needs to be assessed as part of the overall carbon impact of drone lighting compared to standard equipment. The infrastructure around drone charging points and docking pads has an environmental impact of its own, which would need to be considered. Use in residential areas means that drones could be a nuisance in terms of noise and invasive of property and personal space. One of the biggest limitations drones face environmentally is their carbon footprint, both in terms of the energy used to manufacture them and the energy used to power them. As technology improves and as we move to more renewable energy solutions, the carbon impact of drones will hopefully decrease. Another environmental aspect of drones is their impact both on noise and light pollution in long-term projects. For temporary events, this is less of an issue, but if drones do begin to be used in architectural lighting applications, these factors will become an important consideration. Regulations and standards around their use will need to adapt to this new environmental threat. Some ways I believe the evolution of drone technology in lighting may impact our economy is unregulated drones being able to carry spam messages, propaganda, or false information. For example, more scams, which we already see happening on the internet. Emergency messages could be broadcast and flown through residential city areas, for example, hurricane or flood warnings, thus allowing emergency services to focus their efforts elsewhere. Insurance for drones and coverage for drone-related events would create a new financial business opportunity. Selling airspace associated with the building would provide owners with a new revenue stream, for example, renting that space to drone advertisers. Hire companies could become more commonplace, opening up more jobs in this sector, renting smaller drones for less complicated needs such as small-scale advertising or lighting events. New business opportunities for design and manufacture of drones, specific to lighting needs and for companies to design and commission drone lighting installations. New professional areas for training and consulting in drones and drone lighting. Additionally, fines for misused drones along with citations means funds could be put to use by the companies impacted or by local governments, similar to speeding fines. Regulations and standards are how we can prepare for the future. There are currently existing regulations by the CAA, Civil Aviation Authority, in regards to drone piloting, but no lighting standards that cover drone lighting. Issues that would need to be considered for architectural purposes could include the impact on wildlife, such as bats. These can be adapted from the ILP bats and artificial lighting documentation. In the UK, bats have been shown to avoid areas where there are lit stretches, as it creates a barrier which disrupts their foraging and commuting routes. The effect of lone drones or swarms of lighting drones could exacerbate this problem. The current Society of Light and Lighting guidance on obtrusive light could be adapted to encompass drone lighting, ensuring both sky glow and obtrusive light into properties is controlled. There should also be protective guidelines implemented against unregistered drones, wireless communication safety, and accidental damage. This would also raise a lot of potential questions, such as how clients enforce their spaces. Would airspace come with a building? Perhaps specific permits could be used or obtained. Privacy regulations to combat potential crime of stalking, voyeurism, and invasive advertising would also be prudent in residential areas. This is to help avoid nuisance complaints, and a possible solution would be to create a sort of black zone where no drones could fly. Curfew times for drone advertising and general lighting, particularly in residential areas, could use time clock and presence detector technology. Reference to the ILP, the reduction of obtrusive light, would be a good base point for creating drone standards, I believe, as well as an addition to the Society of Light and Lighting's Guide for Lighting, creating a whole new section within it for drones. It also needs a method to measure and control glare and its impact to drivers and pedestrians from drones. Perhaps it could be similar to the current road lighting standards. Current ILP guidance on advertising screens could also be adapted to encompass drone lighting and advertising. There is already useful guidance out there on luminance and disturbance in the ILP, the brightness of illuminated advertisements, which could be used as a basis. I invite you to imagine a future where the current technical and logical limitations do not exist. We already see in popular fiction shows the future being very technology heavy with flying transport, multitudes of screens and lights. The cityscape evolves in ways to accommodate this and encouraging new ways of designing and integrating technology. Will real life follow suit? Personally, I would love to see a future where building design becomes more organic and interactive, personalized to an even greater degree for each building and company, as well as interchangeable for seasonal and cultural events. Should drone deliveries take off, then you can imagine Amazon warehouses where drones can fly back and recharge on their roofs. Bus stops being molded into landing pads within public realm. Waterscape lighting taken on a whole new dimension to create 3D effects that can move about in the water. Zoos and other large-scale maps having integrated drones flying predetermined paths, allowing visitors to follow a tour, and can also be directed to helpful nearby spaces such as bathrooms and rest points. In summary, drone lighting has come a long way from single LED points and small swarm numbers to larger, more robust drones capable of flying in adverse weather with a multitude of attachments for various purposes. I've chosen to focus on how drones may be used within the architectural world, but there are endless possibilities for their future users, as well as how architecture may evolve to make the use of their developing capabilities. The emphasis on improvements in technology and lower carbon electricity to run the technology will hopefully lead to a more sustainable future. It will also be important that lighting guidance as well as other regulations keep on pace with drone technology development to ensure the environment is protected from any negative impacts of this evolving and exciting field. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much, Verity. That's fascinating. Speeding tickets for drones. Let's not give anyone any ideas. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Verity. And again, thank you to all of the finalists, Maria, Teresa, Remedios, and Verity. The judges will now retire to decide who will be the overall winner of the SLL Young Lighter 2021. But while the judges do this, I invite Emma Beadle to give a presentation on life after they won the competition in 2018. Over to you, Emma.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen. Let me know if you can see the screen.
Yes.
I think
I've got the presenter view, sorry.
Yeah. Can I switch that? I don't know.
If you pop it back into the slideshow, there's a display settings. Yeah, if you resume the slideshow.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Then just at the top there, yeah, you got it. Oops. Yeah, there we go. That's. Oh, now it's.
Okay.
There we go.
Can you see the right screen now?
Yeah, we've got your just your go-to control panel. If you just hit that orange button, it should. Yeah, there we go. Lovely.
There you go. Can all see? Okay. Right.
Yes.
Okay. Yep. Good evening. I hope everyone is well. I'd firstly like to thank the SLL for inviting me here to speak today. It's a great honour and privilege. I would also like to congratulate all the Young Lighting Designer finalists, some fantastic and thought-provoking talks. This evening, I would like to share my beginnings and experience in the lighting industry so far. My journey in lighting began when I was studying my undergraduate degree at Edinburgh Napier University. I was first introduced to the world of lighting design by my university tutor, Malcolm Innes, in a lighting module. I suppose I was quite lucky to have the chance to be exposed to lighting design, as not everyone is. My interior and spatial design major project looked at the restoration of an old Art Deco theatre. During the project, I became very interested in designing an artistic lighting centerpiece at the entrance of the building to draw people in with the light. At the end of my undergraduate degree, I continued my education with a lighting design master's at Edinburgh Napier University. My first introduction to co-design projects was during my master's degree. My design tutors Malcolm and Ewan were working on the 12 closest projects in Edinburgh, and I was able to assist. The project aimed to reimagine Edinburgh's Old Town Centre and worked with the residents of the closes. Exploration started with allowing the residents to play with torches and other luminaires to explore and propose new ideas and ways of lighting the closes in a fun and functional way. At the start of my master's degree, I began looking into projects that involved co-design with children. There are many examples of co-design with children and even with adults within other design specialisms. However, at the time of the project, I could not find any documented projects about co-design with children within a lighting project. My lighting design major project, Children's Utopian Visions of the City, co-designing lighting master plans through play and exploration. The project established processes and methods involved in children's co-design. It was based on a case study working with children to redesign urban third spaces in the west of Edinburgh under the topic of utopia. The initial workshops were used to get the children to think about the city and about light. The information gained from these workshops was then used to create the Summer Lighting Club, where I worked closely with children aged 5 to 12 years old, who became my design partners. Together, we created the Children's Toolkit of Light, which can now be used by other children to play and understand some of the characteristics of the complex subject of light. My project aimed to raise awareness to children about lighting design, to highlight the importance of co-design with children and how other designers can do a similar process. Furthermore, the project aimed to gain an understanding of which children's co-design methods worked best and to develop lighting games that can help children understand lighting whilst having fun. The Utopian Workshops involved 2 schools and a group of children from one of my tennis classes who went on to form the design club. The workshops aimed to actualize the children's utopian visions through the medium of light. The children were shown examples of third spaces to facilitate discussions on the pros and cons of each space. This activity got the children thinking critically about urban third spaces within the city. The next activities involved creating the children's favourite or utopian spaces through drawings and modelling with plasticine. The children created many diverse utopian images and models. This activity allowed the children to actualize their imagination in paper and 3D form. Utopian stencils were created from the drawings and models the children had designed. I then demonstrated how to put the stencils on the torch to create their utopian image. The children experimented with different stencils and different colored filters to create stories. After the workshops, I began interpreting the children's work. Each space included a combination of different children's ideas. Here's an example of one of the spaces I sketched out. The main feature within this space is the musical Walkway, designed by one child at Corstorphine, a colourful pathway that when you step on one tile, a musical tune is heard, creating music as you walk. To add to this, I added in a number of other children's utopian ideas etched onto the tiles. For my dissertation, I looked more closely on how to engage children with the learning of the basics of light. I tested and created lighting games alongside the children of the Lighting Club and 2 Brownies groups. The aim being to identify which games were most enjoyable and effective in introducing light to children, with the intent to add the games to the Children's Toolkit of Light. Draw a Picture of Light was used as the warm-up game. The aim of this game was to highlight that every child actually knew something about light and also highlight how diverse their opinions of light are. Where's the Light game was inspired by the popular game Where's Wally? This game got the children to study well-known paintings and to think about where the light is and where the light is coming from. The Material Box game introduced the children to how light can be manipulated with cutouts and how light reacts differently with certain materials. Other games introduced novel materials and involved experimenting with bubbles, blocks, and light in different ways. Most games were highly successful, especially the hands-on games. The glow stick game added a little bit of competitive spirit to the workshop, as the children were split into groups to create a light sculpture with the glow sticks. The stencil game was also well received, particularly when the coloured filters were added. The stencil game came from the Utopian Workshops, reusing the children's utopian stencils to highlight how light can be shaped and used to create stories. My master's dissertation research highlighted that education in lighting is important for children, as they not only learnt about some of the basics of light, but also developed valuable social and mobile skills, along with critical design thinking and problem solving. It also showed that for children to learn successfully about lighting, a playful, kinesthetic manner needs to be employed. The future of co-design with children, primarily within light, is uncertain, as there are only a number of lighting projects working with children at the moment. The project highlights the importance of children in lighting design and their ability to produce unique ideas. Co-designing with children can bring a new, fun, and different perspective to a project, one that adults may not be able to imagine. It also introduced the concept of lighting to children, which will allow them, as the adults of tomorrow, to know what lighting design is and understand the role of a lighting designer. To keep the lighting industry growing, we need to inspire children at this young age and start to educate them about lighting earlier. So during the summer months of my master's degree, I undertook a summer work placement at Bure Happold in Edinburgh. This is where I was introduced to Dilux for the first time. I'm quite interested in different modeling programs, so enjoyed learning how to use the software over my time there. I also went on site for the first time, where I helped with the commissioning of this large chandelier in McEwen Hall. After the completion of my degree, I began working at WSP in London as a graduate lighting designer, joining a small team with Sasha and Alexandra. As I only had 2 months' experience to my name at the time, I was a bit unsure as what to expect. The job also involved me moving from Edinburgh to London, which was quite a big step for me after living in Edinburgh all my life. Every day, the job involves learning new and fascinating things about lighting. During my time at WSP, I have had the chance to work on a range of different projects. I have particularly enjoyed working on urban realm, lighting master plan, and heritage projects. As WSP is a multidisciplinary company, I've had the opportunity to work with and learn from the other disciplines within the company on larger scale projects. Project shown on the screen here is Old Street Roundabout, that I've had the opportunity to work on from the beginning to the construction stage where we are currently. From this project, I have learned a lot, including lighting controls, electrical circuits, and TfL standards. Since joining the company, Sasha continued to encourage me to enter the SLL Young Lighting Designer of the Year competition, and I'm so happy he did, as I've learned so much from the competition. The competition provided me with an opportunity to take a second look at the project, which helped me understand better what I had achieved during my lighting masters and rationalise the project. The early stage of the competition involved me creating a short film about my project, which I think took quite a few takes to get right. The following stage involved several late nights trying to reduce my 16,000 word dissertation to I think about a quarter of that. And finally, the preparation for the final presentation. For the presentation, I did quite a few dry runs with the lighting team where they provided their thoughts and feedback. The competition really helped me develop my presentational skills and allowed me to continue my research into children in lighting and to raise awareness of the issue to the wider lighting community. So I would highly recommend the competition to anyone thinking of applying. I have been a member of the SLL since I started at WSP. Last year, I became elected member of the SLL Council and also successfully achieved my associate membership and plan to continue to the next level in the coming year. SLL have a number of interesting events to go to and learn more about light. My particular favourite is Ready Steady Light, which allows you to get hands-on with the luminaires and create a lighting installation in just 3 hours. This was particularly helpful after a year at home without any luminaires. I recently participated in an interview for the Women in Lighting website alongside my fellow female council members to encourage fellow women in lighting to join the fantastic SLL. The percentage of women to men in the SLL is imbalanced, so we are looking to inspire more women to join. So if you're not a member, then please consider joining. After a year of growing within WSP, I was promoted to Assistant Lighting Designer, where I had the chance to take on new responsibilities within the team. Whilst based in the Devonshire Square office, I took on the responsibility of Launchpad Lead, which involved assisting fellow colleagues in STEM activities and the WSP Summer Work Experience Programme, where I included a special session on an introduction to lighting design to the high school placements. During this year, myself and Melissa visited 2 schools and introduced the field of lighting design and what we do as lighting designers to the children. We then finished the session with the glow stick game. At the end of 2019, I was invited to speak at the Build to Perform conference to share my project and further raise awareness of the benefits of working with children in lighting projects. In 2019, I also joined the ILP's Education Committee to promote and assist with the education of lighting. Whilst a member of the ILP, I also volunteered to assist with the Illuminated River project, where I got to help Leo on site with the programming of the lighting controls of the project. Last Christmas, I was promoted again to lighting engineer level, and I'm currently preparing to become senior. Since joining WSP, our team has grown from a team of 3 to now a team of 11, with offices in Edinburgh and India. I'd like to finish with telling you all about a recent project I had the opportunity to work on. The project is based in the south of London and involved illuminating the underside of 3 bridges. We thought that the project had an excellent basis to work with the local children, as we would not only introduce the idea of lighting design to them, but allow them to make a positive mark on their community. We contacted 3 schools in the local area and began the school's workshops, with initial phone call with the teachers to run through what the project entails and what our intentions and goals were. We then commenced with a Friday morning session with each of the schools through video call. We began the workshop with a little introduction about what lighting design is and our role as lighting designers. We then introduced the project and provided them blank templates to create their designs on, which could be based on local landmarks, their passions, or simply their own taste. On the following Monday, we caught up with the children who presented us their design ideas. You can see from these drawings how colour, silhouette, and shadow play have inspired the children, along with recurring themes such as underwater, rainbows, nature, and landmarks. Our next step was to interpret the children's drawings and create workable solutions under the themes of heritage, creative, and culture. STEM work in schools is really important, especially when related to lighting. By working with children on design projects, this brings a new, fun, and different perspective to the design and also provided us with first-hand experience from the bridge users. Through STEM-based workshops, we are raising awareness of the field of lighting design to the children and talking about what lighting design is and what a lighting designer does. By getting the children involved in the design of the bridges, this is creating a relationship between the children and the bridges. After completing the project with Newton Prep, they then got in contact to ask for our help with another project. WSP Architecture Lighting have been working with the children of Newton Prep at 9 Elms to create an illuminated Christmas window. Children from years 3, 4, and 5 have all contributed artworks to a window where peace on earth is celebrated, with the traditional white doves and fallen snowflakes fluttering in a restful white scene with a twist. UV lamps and fluttering fans bring the scene to a glowing, moving life for the passers and onlookers in Lockton Road. So if you're in the area, I'd recommend taking a look. These last 2 projects are an excellent example of how easy it is to work with children on a creative design project. We were able to introduce the concept of lighting design and the role of a lighting designer, whilst also inspiring them with light. The world of lighting is exciting and educational. We learn something new every day by working within an industry that is ever growing and uses new technologies. Lighting design is a mixture of creativity, technical, and problem solving, which is why it makes such an interesting industry to be within. However, the industry of lighting design is underrepresented. Many children grow up to a world not knowing that they can be lighting designers when they are older. So, I'd like to finish with a little plea to everyone. If you're working on a creative lighting project, then please consider co-design with a local school, brownie group, tennis class, scouts group, anyone, and introduce the children to what lighting design is and what you do. And out of it, you'll gain some really interesting creative ideas from the young children. We need to communicate with children and share what we do and why we do it. We need to share what we love to inspire the future generations and keep the lighting industry going. Light can inspire future generations to reimagine the city. The children we work with are not just children, they are the adults and the designers of tomorrow. So why don't we work with the adults of tomorrow to educate us today? Thank you and Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much, Emma. That was superb. It's so inspirational and something I think it's too easy to forget to include people and yet so easy to actually do so. So thanks very much. That's a takeaway for me to have a look at the jobs we've won recently and how do we get involved with youngsters more. Brilliant. Thank you so much personally. Equally, thank you to everyone who entered the SLL Young Lighter competition, from everyone you've seen today and in the past, and listening to Emma, hopefully it's encouraged you to enter next year. Thank you to the judges for taking the time to deliberate whilst Emma was talking, and it was perfectly timed in that the winner came through while Emma was chatting away there. There was a little bit of a panic as to what might happen if we didn't get a winner in time. But thanks very much to the judges, Alexandra Calamari, Helen Marsh, Rory Marples, and Maneska Kaya. Thank you. Without further ado, we'll announce the winner. And the winner of the SLL Young Lighter 2021 is Maria Englezou. Congratulations, Maria. Very well deserved. Your prize money and, of course, the trophy will be with you shortly. Very well done. So all that remains for me is to thank all of you for logging on, listening and watching. I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I have, and I hope you have an enjoyable evening. Thank you.